thank you for joining us for the next episode of CEO Parenting. My wonderful guest today is Lindsey Miller. Now, for everyone out there, understand this is very conversational, so we will talk to each other. You are taking a glimpse into a conversation that I have. I talk to Lindsey a lot, and so just the things that she goes throughout her day. She's a wonderful parent, wonderful business owner, multiple business owners, so we're going to talk to her. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So let's just, there's a lot of people that don't know you because you kind of fly under the radar a lot in the things that you've done, and that's probably by choice. So give us the 90-second version of like you in like what grew up, college, business, just that, and then we'll obviously hit on some of those other things later.
The elevator speech. Yeah. Grew up in West Alabama. Catfish farm.
Catfish farm.
Yeah. So my dad was ex-Amish, ex-Mennonite. So I grew up.
I did not know that.
Working like a boy on the farm. Finished up school in Greensboro, Alabama, and then I went to Shelton State JUCO on a full ride. Like look at me go. It was just academic.
Okay.
I played all three sports in high school, but you know, I knew I was gonna have to work.
Did you play anything in college?
I did not.
Gotcha.
I did not. I never even pursued it. My family, none of them have a college education.
Right.
So, and they've done pretty well for themselves. So they were like, what are you doing? You don't have to go. Sure. You can like do other things. And I really want to go to college. So
your parents didn't push college on you?
They did not. And
what did they talk about then? Because like I'm at a crossroads right now.
Working hard.
Really?
Honestly, yeah. I mean, I worked. I got paid by the farm, and I worked on the farm. And they told me I could go to college, but I was on my own. And so it was very different for me. Even playing sports for a little while, my dad grew up in such a way that like work and family were first, that I had to like work really hard and then go play sports. Like it was very, just very foreign to him because that's not how he grew up. He grew up 8th grade education, worked on the farm, was a carpenter, and they did. That family has done extremely well. Right.
So would you say you came like from a middle class background or like upper middle class?
I would say they are definitely upper middle. They're probably upper class at this point. But when I was younger, they were probably upper middle, but I never knew it.
No one knew.
I didn't know it. Sure. I don't even know if they knew it. But my granddad came down from Ohio and paid cash for land like in the early 80s and just
and y'all's farm was catfish.
It is. We have about 1,000 acres underwater. Yeah, we raise about 6 million pounds of fish a year. And everything is paid for.
6 million pounds.
Yeah.
Do you do the books for your?
My mother does.
No way.
She works with me too, but she does the books there. Yeah.
That's great.
So I grew up with like, you know, obviously that's the ultimate entrepreneur background is in farming. But yeah, college wasn't a huge like push on me. It was like, yeah, if you want to do it, go do it.
But you got to pay for it
figure
yourself.
It out. Yeah. So I worked 2 jobs the whole time I was in.
I knew none of this
college.
Information.
Yeah.
I knew none of this. I've known her for years.
Yeah. It's funny because my friends are like, you know, I like nice things now.
Sure.
I like to eat well and drink good wine and stuff. And I grew up like grinding on a catfish farm. I mean, I could still drive a tractor with the rest of them and do all that. But yeah, so I grew up very different background, but very focused on doing the right thing, very non-judgmental family. Like I really appreciate that. Like they really saw people for where they were in life and not who they were, what they had. So really great, humble kind of background, but very, very smart business people that were farmers. But
so you said he paid cash for that land?
Yeah, my granddad did.
And then did they develop it into catfish farms?
They did. Yeah, they did.
Now, was Greensboro, so I know people from Greensboro, we're Shrett. Shout out to Will. So he's the one that introduced us years ago.
That's right. Thanks, Will.
So did was catfish farming there before y'all moved there?
It was just kind of starting down there. And I don't know exactly like where it came from, but it was obviously happening in the Delta over in Mississippi. Right. And Mississippi was much more, like they got into it a lot faster than West Alabama, but we have similar soil. Right. Clay-based soil. It's the Black Belt, so you got really good soil on top of clay. And so it's really built for, my granddaddy kind of researched the water a little bit down there too. So we're really in the middle of like a really strong aquifer and a lot of natural water resources too. Yeah.
So this wasn't happenstance.
No, my granddaddy, also 8th grade education because he was ex-Amish, very, very smart when it came to business and real estate and land. And but he had bought and owned a lot of land in Ohio and actually was a builder, developed it, built his own roads, built his own houses, made his money up there, kept the oil and mineral rights. Wow. Picked up and moved to Alabama, paid cash for land, and continued to pay cash for land as he went through it. So he just
Let's don't forget that. I want to talk about that when we get like toward the ends, like the paying cash for land and stuff like that. So I know you probably have opinions of that. All right, so go ahead. You went to Shelton, and then from there where?
And then people really don't know this, and I don't know how I feel about it, but I went to Auburn. I'm a huge Alabama fan.
The voicemail is Roll Tide.
I'm a huge Alabama fan. Always was, but I went into ag econ. I wanted to go into agriculture.
Okay.
I loved where I was raised. I loved the farm. I loved that. It was really hard work. It made me want to go learn more and have a backup plan.
Sure.
And my dad did encourage that, especially in, after 9/11 and everything. He was like, hey, a backup skill set's not going to be bad. But I still wanted to go into ag. And so Auburn gave me a scholarship. Obviously, Alabama doesn't have ag.
Right.
Mississippi State was going to be out of state, so I went to Auburn.
Expensive.
Yeah, and I was probably having too much fun in Tuscaloosa anyway.
Sure.
So I actually went and finished undergrad at Auburn, but I switched to accounting middle of my first year there because I had a knack for it.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting my undergrad in accounting in Auburn. Then I got to UAB.
So why did you? So if ag was like a passion and like you really wanted to do it, but what made you switch? Just because, hey, I'm good at this. I mean,
really a couple teachers came to me, and I don't think I really understood what kind of path there was in that. I wasn't exposed to a lot of that.
Yeah.
My mom has a bookkeeping background, and my mother could have, if she'd have went to school, she could have been a CEO of any Fortune 500. But so I knew some about it, but I didn't really realize what all career paths you could take from it. And my dad actually had a conversation with me. He said, like, Lou, he called me Lou. Lou, we can teach you how to farm. So I'm not sure that's what you should go to school for. Like, if you're bound and determined to do that, why don't you pick something else? And so accounting was something I was really good at.
Graduated from Auburn, and then what?
UAB, grad school.
What'd you do in grad school?
Master's in accounting.
Really? Didn't know that either.
Yeah.
From there, where?
So I was at Zoe's part-time.
So when you were at grad school, you worked at Zoe's part-time.
I did.
You started at Zoe. Okay, so this is a great part of the story. So you started at Zoe's doing what?
I was front desk, like the host cashier.
$12 an hour.
Yeah, not even.
Not even.
Not even then.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I was going to school at night. I was in the nighttime program at UAB.
Okay.
But yeah, so I was there about 6 or 7 months. I'd gotten promoted up to shift lead pretty quick. And the store I was at was in Crestline, and John owned half, and his mom and dad owned half. Yeah.
Okay, so the Zoe's I remember was the one downtown.
Yep, that was the original. Or there was an original downtown. Then there was.
That's the one I used to go
Homewood.
to. Mm-hmm. And there was one in Homewood.
Yep, and now there's
Yeah.
Everything's in the past tense now.
Sure.
But yeah, then there was one.
So you started working there in grad school with John.
Yep.
So John owns the place, but John Casmus, he's also running the place, him and his mom, right?
Yeah, so this one, Zoe and Marcus still own the one in Homewood, like the OG one that most people remember.
Right.
Right down the road from Soho. And then John and his dad and mom, like they all co-owned the Crestline location.
Okay.
So it was really fun. Like one would come in and be like, let's put the phone over here. And then the next one would come in and be like, why is the phone over there? It was great conditioning.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And they're great. They're like another family to me, like an amazing, loud, smart Greek family to me. So anyway, I didn't stay in the store level long. I moved up into more of a assistant controller role.
Okay.
And I think I was with the company, let's see, I started close to the end of 2004. The beginning of 2007, the CFO resigned, and John, so I was like 25 years old. No, it was 2007. John called me. I was flying back from Dallas. I was like the fill-in GM. Like if a GM went down, I was working in accounting, but I was like doing anything they told me to do, basically.
Okay, so when you were there, you started at the front desk, and there was only like one or two stores.
Yeah, I think there was a few, like Patton Creek, Archie Andrews, and part of that one. I think there was 4.
Okay, so you started there with 4 stores, and then from there, where did it go?
So,
when John owned the place, because after it sold, it was a totally different animal.
John grew it to 19 to 21, I believe, and we sold it in 2007 private equity.
So you were there 2004 to 2007, only 3 years.
No. I was there for 13 and a half years. I was there till we went public.
Oh, so you were there after?
I was John's CFO when he sold private equity in 2007.
Okay. When did you start then? What year was that when you started?
The end of 2004, I started. Okay. And then at the beginning of 2007, the CFO resigned, and I was like 25 years old, and he was like, can you do the CFO job? And I was like, sure. Got it. Yeah. Little did I know, about 6 to 7 weeks later, he hired a broker to go sell.
So how long did you stay there at that point?
So I stayed. I mean, I didn't stay in the accounting role, but I stayed. So we started the process early 07. We closed on Halloween of 07. I led all the due diligence for us with a group out of California, bought majority. And then I stayed. They brought in their own CFO and their own CEO when John left.
Right.
And then I moved into operations at that point. They let me kind of pick where I wanted to go because I was doing it all.
Sure.
So I was one of the first multi-unit operators, and I ran most of the Southeast. And then I moved up. I was VP of Ops when I left in the end of 17, and I had 40 restaurants underneath me.
When you say I had 40 restaurants underneath you, what does that mean? Like you just made...
So I had 8 regionals under me, and they collectively ran 40 different restaurant units in the Southeast.
So when you... Okay. So from 04 to 07, it was a smallish operation, family-owned operation, 19-ish stores.
Growing very
right.
quickly.
Did you have any equity at that point?
I did not. I got my equity when we sold private equity in 07.
How much did you get there, percentage-wise?
I don't remember the percentage. Honestly, at all, I couldn't tell you now because there was like 3 different times that it had some sort of value multiplier.
Yeah.
And then even when we went public. So I didn't get anything until we went public. Like I had equity when we sold in 07.
In 07.
And then when we rang the bell in 14, I got my money then. So I don't know
when
what
did you
percentage
leave?
it was.
17.
I left in 17. It was getting rough.
Okay, when you left in 17, okay, so I don't understand this, so educate me.
You're good.
When it goes public in 14, and you've got, let's just use the number 10. I don't know, 10% of 10%. I know it's probably not that much. 10%.
I wish. It would've been the
So let's just say it's 2% equity. How do you make money at that point when it goes public in 14?
So the value is immediate. Like
Sure.
whatever, it was kind of called a waterfall valuation effect. So basically, based on things that I do not know because I wasn't in the finance part of it then, they came out and said ours actually went up. We had X amount of shares of like B stock, and they got converted into.
What is B stock?
There's like A stock, B stock, C stock. It just depends on how
Just
corporation
depends on-
is done. But different levels have different rights. Like I didn't have voting rights, but I had equity, and I was higher up, and because I was like literally one of 2 people left with that kind of.
You were higher up
equity.
some of the voting people at the time.
because I had more than a lot of the C-suite people.
Okay, so when they sold, can you go and can you cash all that stuff in then, or do you have a waiting period?
If you're still with the company, you have insider trading rules. So
you had to leave.
You have it, you own it, but you can only buy and sell within the open windows, which is after the public is allowed to know everything that happened in the prior quarter, and then you can trade too. But you're at the disadvantage of now everyone just heard whatever happened.
Right.
And you're many times selling into a downside.
Okay, so you left in 17.
I'd sold half of it at that point, and I sold the rest when I left. I should have sold more.
Do you have any now?
No. I sold all of it like 2 weeks after I left.
Okay. When you left there and you had that, whatever that pot of money was, what'd you do with that money?
I'd already been flipping some of it.
All right, so here we go.
Yeah. So
All right.
I'd cashed out starting in 14. I'd started to cash some out. I should have cashed out more.
Earlier.
Yeah, earlier. Not in the beginning because it did go up. We did take it. I think we went public at strike price at 15, and the high was somewhere in the top 40s or low 50s.
Okay.
We weren't able to trade during that time, but I still sold some in that 30 range,
right.
And did really well off of that. But I held a lot of it until it went back down. But either way, I had already cashed some out, and so I was already using that to flip.
When you say flip, you mean flip houses?
Yeah, so I was buying the property, and then I had a business partner that would
the contractor. Okay,
and
so
then
just
we
like
split.
we've done.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
How many of those did you do in that time frame? This was back 15, 16, 17, so pretty average market, nothing crazy.
Nothing crazy. It wasn't like crazy to get in, and it wasn't crazy to get out. Solid returns. I think we only lost money on one. Let's see, we probably did 7 or 8. I was doing like two to 3 a year during that time.
Okay, so when you leave Zoe's, you already had some of this other side stuff going on. No kids at the time.
No.
When you leave Zoe's, what did you transition to doing then?
I was still doing that a little bit. We were in the middle of opening really more of a passion project, which is a coffee shop back home. It's still open. My mom and her friends and some local people own it now. So we opened that right after I left Zoe. So we were already doing that. I knew it was time for me to go.
Like leave Zoe's?
Yeah, I knew it was time for me to go. Like the culture was changing in a massive way.
There was a big change. So like I was a frequenter. So like we moved away from Birmingham in 03. And then we were gone for 17 years.
I didn't know that. Wait, where did you go?
15 years. We were gone for 15 years. So that's where I met Will. So we went to Atlanta for 2 years.
Okay, that's
and
right.
then we went to North Carolina for 2 years. We got fired in North Carolina, and we went to Cookeville for 11 years. But during that process, y'all sold. And like I saw, like I want to say we had one in Nashville. I think Will ran one of the ones in Nashville.
Brentwood, yeah.
And so we saw we saw the process of the growth. I saw the one in Destin. So you saw that. And then it's like, I think when we moved back in 17. And at that point, 17, 18, 19, it started to be different. Yeah. Here's when it started to be different. When they started selling wine. That was weird. Walking into Zoe's, and wine's fine. I'm not a wine drinker myself, but like wine's fine. But that's when they started selling wine, it was like, it's different.
It was one of many things. So what you had is, when John left, we had a CEO out of California come in. And Zoe's was Greek, but it was still Southern. It was still a Southern concept. Southern hospitality was at the forefront of everything we did and knew there was Southern food on the menu with Greek food on the menu. And so we opened Atlanta with a brand new menu, very different, real dishes, way more complicated. I think our GM broke out in hives like the day we opened. And so you took something really simple. Yeah. And it was really simple, like simple, tasty, fresh.
Wraps, kebabs.
That was the tagline for a reason. And you could execute it. You could execute it without a lot of stress.
And people don't understand that that's a huge deal in food. It's like being repeatable and being easy.
Yeah. And so they did a huge, massive overhaul right when John left. It kind of got back to okay. Yeah. And then they ended up moving the corporate office out to Plano, which was fine. But that CEO left. And then another CEO came in. And he actually put some pretty good people around him, and we had some protection for operations at the table. And what I mean by that is the C-suite would get together and throw out ideas because everyone wants to make their thumbprint on a growth company like that. Absolutely. And okay, but you got to protect the field a little bit. And there were some really good people at the table for a while that would be like, oh man, that's gonna kill our back of the house team, or hey, we can't ask people to be good to a customer client coming up if we're asking them to do 4 more things at the register. Sure. And then that left. We had some exodus after we went public, and some of the people at the table that knew how a store actually ran left, and there was really in its essence there became no one to protect the people in the field, doing the hard work. Wow. Yeah. And I kind of stayed and felt like I was protecting my team from my own company the last couple years. And I was probably more emotional about it than I wish I'd have been because I had so much blood, sweat, and tears on the field, and I'd been there so much longer than everybody. I mean, I was kind of the thorn in their side on change a lot because
Did you stay too long?
I would say
I don't know. No one ever likes to say regret. But
I stayed too long for. I was not a good employee probably the last year I was there because they were doing so many things I didn't believe in.
Yeah,
I just didn't believe in anything they were doing. However, I learned a lot that last year. I actually saw it started kind of imploding about 7 months after I left, and I told the CEO before I left exactly what was going to happen if they kept doing what they were doing. And but you get there's a lot of pressure that comes with going public, and
a lot.
You start answering to the streets and you kind of forget the recipe that brought you there. Right. It gets a little rough. So I don't know if there's anybody to blame. It's just kind of a bad situation in general. Sure. You went from being the darling of the fast casual to some extent to getting bought out by a competitor with a fifth of the store count that you had. And now we see Kava's popping up everywhere, and that's what happened. And they bought Zoe's for the real estate. And so anyway, it makes me sad because I know Zoe, and I know her husband,
and know John,
and I know John, all those, and you're like, man, kind of It's heartbreaking because that was the American dream. They were, Zoe and Marcus
Absolutely.
were like they didn't know what they were going to
No.
do for money. And then they opened something and it went really well. And John realized it was going well and grew it. Then it goes in private equity sale, a great exit for John. I think we were at a 10-time multiple on that. Then it goes public, and this was a mom and pop, and
That's
like
crazy in Birmingham, Alabama.
counter service didn't even take credit cards, and it
Right.
went to that. So when you're like, man, I had a front row seat to like the American dream.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I saw it get done wrong.
Right.
There's a lot of learning in that. So as much as I probably shouldn't have been there, as long as I was, I learned a lot.
Learned a lot and pretty thankful for
Yeah,
that.
I
So
did.
you left there, opened this coffee shop, and then from there, where did it?
So
Do your flipping
yeah,
also?
I was flipping. I
Yeah.
mean, I really planned to not do anything.
Okay,
for
so
a
let me
minute.
ask you this. In that position, you were probably making a pretty good living,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
No man, no boyfriend,
No,
no
just me.
nobody, just you
Just
rolling.
me.
So no man, no nothing. And you're making a pretty good living. Why did you want to start doing the flipping? Because you had excess money and you wanted to put it to work?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I was playing with the house's money, but I mean, I didn't put anything. I put time and effort into Zoe's, but I got a nice chunk.
Yeah.
And I needed to put it to work.
Sure.
And I didn't really know what to do with it. I actually applied to be a Pure Barre franchisee because I really liked the fitness space.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can hire somebody to run that, and I think that'd do pretty well. And they turned me down because I had no fitness background. It's funny now, but that's okay. But then I met a guy that was doing flipping, and he was like, he needed help with the books, and my mom was like did our books, but I did one with him and it went really well, and I didn't have to touch it. Honestly, I was the bank, and
Yeah, sure.
I would go check on stuff, and we kept the book so we knew it was on the up and up. But it was just really, really
Easy.
and I own the asset. So if worst came to worst, I'm sitting on a hard asset.
Okay, so let's talk technically on that. So when you
Yeah.
did that, did you buy the house, buy the land, and he just did the work and you paid for the work too? Or did he take out a mortgage with you and you loaned him the money?
So I would pay cash for the houses.
Right.
And then I would own the houses, and then he would come in and he would pay for the reno and run the reno.
So you still own the house. See, with
Yeah.
ours, we did it the other way
Other
around.
way. Mhm.
So I was the bank, and then Justin took out a mortgage with me,
Yep.
and he had the money, and he did all the work. And then the back end, we obviously split
Yeah.
it just like y'all. Just two.
There's so many ways to
Sure.
do it. I've done flipping. I do some flipping investment now with a local guy, and all I do is write a check, and it's more of like a bank note. But we just did a joint venture because there's more upside, and then he's not upside. I've seen it done so many ways. I think the best way to do it is always to have profit share and not guaranteed payback for the investor, because you can get yourself in real trouble with that as
Yeah.
a flipper, right? Or anybody that's taking investment and says, well, you're going to get 15 points back on this in 6 months no matter what. And the housing market does what it's doing right
So
now.
you've gotten to the point. I remember you having a conversation earlier. You don't always take half the profit. You don't do that anymore at all, do you?
Well, on this joint venture, we're doing 50-50.
But like normally, you loan somebody $100,000 and you're saying, "Give me 15%."
Yep, that's how I've done it sometimes. And it's great for me. It's just
What are
not
you
always
doing?
good for them.
What are you doing right now, percentage wise?
So
In
I've
doing
negotiated
those?
20 points. 20% within. So whatever I give them is typically been in 9 months, you'll give me my money back plus 20%.
Plus 20%. That's not bad at all.
No, it's great, but it can be really tough.
Can
on
get
the
their
other
nuts in a
side.
vice if they
Yeah.
don't.
And the goal is not to take advantage of people. It's to have a sustainable partnership, right?
Right.
And so that's
Yeah,
why.
sure.
Yeah, and that's why we've kind of moved into like, let's split the risk, but then the upside is much better in
For
a
both
joint
of you.
venture for me.
Yeah.
But there's risk in it too. But at least they're not trying to pay money out when they haven't sold the house or something.
Right.
I mean, there's no guarantee in that. The housing market was on fire, obviously, during COVID
Yes.
and everything. So that was easy to do.
So after you started doing flips and things like that, you started keeping the books when you're doing the flips. What did you kind of move into for a big girl job?
Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I
And you're
knew
how old at this time?
I was, let's see, what year? I was like 37.
Okay.
Yeah, 36, 37. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was going to be, John Casimus called me like as soon as I left Zoe's, and he's like, come help me with Maki Fresh and Jinsei. And so I kind of went sort of consulting for him right
Yeah.
out of the gate. But I knew I wanted to open my own business. I knew I wanted to start my own brand.
Not food.
Well, I thought about it.
Yeah.
I went to New York and I looked at 17 different restaurant concepts and
For franchises.
for fitness. No, I was just gonna get some inspiration. I did not want a franchise because there's something to be said for building the brand from the bottom up.
Sure.
And I'd got to sort of do that a little bit at Zoe's, but not really. I wasn't there from the conceptualization. And I'm not against franchising. I hope that's something that we do at Battle. But I knew that at this point I wanted to go see if I could do it from scratch.
Right.
And I knew I was going to miss my team. I had a fantastic team. It was like my work family.
Right.
And I knew I wanted a team. I mean, flipping was great, but you don't really have like
Solo.
a team. Yeah.
You and one or two other people.
Yeah. And consulting is great, but I mean, I have a team now, but I didn't then. So I knew I wanted to do something with a team. So I looked at restaurants. I was really burnt out on that though. I mean, the hiring, and retention. And I think we did a pretty good job of it with my team, but it still was like, it was just tough. I mean,
Right.
it hadn't gotten any easier for people.
No.
I still love it. Like, I still would probably look at doing it again because I do really enjoy the hospitality industry.
Right.
But so I knew I wanted to do a boutique fitness or a restaurant, which sounds so crazy, like one or the other. But I felt like I could get into those. Leah, who I grew up with, has a fantastic fitness background. She played it at Bama D1 out of Greensboro, and then she coached in the WNBA. I mean, she's like
She's
top
awesome.
top level. And so we had opened the coffee shop together.
Didn't know that.
Yep. And so I called her and I was like, hey, you want to go to New York with me? Like, I think like there's some concepts up there in boxing inspired, like Rumble, Shadow Box, that we didn't have anything like it down here. And so I was like, I'm going to go look at a bunch of restaurants and some fitness up in New York because I think we're always last to get things down here and it sort of annoys me.
Yeah.
So, I don't have an original idea, but let me just go see what's working really well up there.
So here's the great thing is you knew you wanted to do something, weren't sure, but you knew that typically New York and LA concepts things hit first.
Yep.
Part of the reason is the influx of all the different human beings that live there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second thing is, in my opinion, is people aren't afraid to take a chance.
Absolutely.
So they take chances on these odd things, and so then that's when.
Yeah. So we went to New York, and it was kind of a weird day. I flew in by myself the first day. Leah came in the next day after, and I went to Shadow Box first. But it was I'd been gone from Zoe's probably 3-4 weeks at that point.
Oh,
and
I didn't know it was that quick.
it was like really quick. I was gonna take some time off, but I'm not good at that.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I was having a day, man. I mean, you travel, get on a plane by yourself is some introspection.
Sure.
I mean, it brings it, buddy. And I was like, man, I'm not with my people that I've been with for 13 and a half years. And so I was kind of having a tough day. And I was like, it was a little bit, I felt pretty good and confident about figuring things out, but I really didn't know what the heck I was going to do. And so I went in and I went to this boxing concept, and it's quite a bit different than what we do at Battle, but it still has some similarities. And one of them was, I mean, they kind of let you go and let you kind of fight out whatever you need to fight out for a little bit during the class. And I didn't know how much I needed just physical release of getting just some sadness, I think, off my chest a little bit. But I walked out of there and I felt so like I had like some swagger. I was like
awesome.
Let's go. I mean, I don't know. It was really, I mean, fitness in itself does that for a lot of people, right? But there was something about the physical, like fighting through something that resonated with me a lot. And I have no boxing background. Obviously, I'm a big sports person, but I don't know. There was just something there that I was like, man, I want to keep doing that.
Right.
And there was nothing like that down here.
So you saw the boxing places. You kind of mind up that you want to do a restaurant, but you saw the boxing places. So that's when you and Leah started Battle Republic.
We did.
So tell us about that here in Birmingham. You got 2 places here in Birmingham.
We do. And we're looking in Tuscaloosa and Trustful currently.
Trustful.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this was early 18, right?
Yep.
And I literally told Leah, the first time I mentioned it to her, she was like, okay, Lindsey.
Now, what was Leah doing at the time besides the coffee shop?
It's interesting how the world works. Leah had been in Seattle coaching for the Storm up there.
Okay.
She had just moved back. She opened her own gym back in Greensboro because she kind of felt a calling to come back home. Her grandmother was sick, and she just think, she'd been kind of going hard at it in the coaching world for a while, and she just felt the tug to come back home. And there really wasn't a gym in Greensboro. There also wasn't a coffee shop, so we just
Did both.
opened them. Yeah, our gym's still there.
Yep.
Still does really well. Yeah, so she was back home, and I think she'd been there for a little while, but I could tell she was getting bored.
Sure.
So it just kind of worked out.
Right.
I mean, she was doing that and doing pretty well at it, but.
So you started the gym. Where does Lewin come in? How did y'all get hooked up with Lewin? So Lewin owns Wheelhouse Academy here in Birmingham. Wonderful business owner. He will be. I'll be talking to him at some point. So how did Lewin get involved? Because he owns a gym.
Yep. So we kind of had this internal conversation in the beginning of we could put some money in it, but not put too much money into Battle. And we're like, okay, we could, it's a gym, it's fitness, it's new to me. And then we were like, you know what? Let's do it right. Like, let's treat it like it's going to be something. Yeah. And that it's going to grow. And so we went to Kevin McClendon, who's a buddy of mine. He was at Telegraph then, and I knew that they were really good at branding and the marketing side, which I did not have much experience in at that point. So we talked to him first. He's like, I'm in. So he got a small piece of equity for full brand and web and all that on the front end. He recommended Lewin to us because we really wanted a consultant to help, and that's what Lewin was doing. He owned Wheelhouse Academy, but he also was doing Wheelhouse Consulting. Right. And so we hired him as a consultant.
And he on the front end of all of that, he helped do all the Iron Tribes.
Yeah, I mean,
a lot of people don't realize that.
Background.
Like Lewin's name's not on any of the Iron Tribe stuff.
No, but he knows all the things. Oh yeah.
Forrest and Jim with all the Iron Tribe stuff, and then now he owns Wheels. If you've never met Lewin Wynn, he is an awesome human being.
He's the best.
He's the best.
And he has so much knowledge in that space. Yeah. So it was easy to see why he was a consultant in it. Yeah. But the more we got to talking to him, we just really meshed really well with him. And Kevin was there, and they're still in it with us.
Kevin and Lewin?
They're not active in it very much, but Lewin's still a great resource for us. He sent us a lot of really good humans that still work with us. But yeah, Lewin had to teach us how to box. I mean, and not only that, he'd watched a concept grow and scale. He'd seen what had been done right, what had not been done right. He consulted, I want to say like 100 other gym concepts outside of that when he left Iron Tribe. So, I mean, kind of what I do a lot with restaurants and stuff, he was going and doing for gyms. So he was a great resource, and he kind of like was like, I could sort of tell he might want to get involved, but he didn't really know what that. And so when he brought it up, we were like, yeah.
So this is a great example, and this is like where you and I put you on Cody Sanchez.
Yep.
So Cody's wonderful. And so this is really, you've done this before, a lot of her concepts before, you've done it. So you give people equity in the company.
Yep.
So Kevin, hey, we're going to give you equity in the company, but we need you, instead of paying $10,000, $5,000, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 for a website, brand, all the colors, all that stuff, you're going to get equity, but we're not going to pay you anything because you're going to get part of the ownership.
Correct.
And then you did the same thing with Lewin.
But in consulting work.
Like help us to conceptualize this. So Lindsey and Leah give money. Lewin and Kevin give wisdom and knowledge and obviously assets, things, and that's how the company. That's awesome.
Yeah, and
so y'all the four owners.
So we just brought on another investor that she's brought cash in to grow. So that's why we're getting ready to grow. And she sought us out. She's a local doctor here in town, very self-made. She's a client at Battle, and she hit us up and kind of a deal we couldn't say no to. Yeah, and it's a good. We've sat in front of a lot of people. Like a lot of people have kind of hit us up about like, when y'all wanting to grow, or you wanting an investor? And we've talked to a lot of people, but it has to be the right person.
No doubt. Okay, so this is a question I have, and this is a question I know people want to know. 4 people on the thing, on the gym. You know it's time to grow.
Yep.
Susie comes in.
Yep.
Susie's the name I use for everybody.
Fair enough.
Susie's the name and comes in. And so Susie has money just like you had when you had Zoe's.
Yep.
Susie's got money. Hey, I want to invest.
Yep.
Let's just use the number. How do you
figure that out?
Figure that out with how much money she's going to bring versus how much equity she's going to get, and do you split the equity? Do you pull from all the 4 people's equity?
So technically, our operating agreement states that, first of all, Leah and I are the only voting members. I'm the managing member. I'm the majority owner.
Okay.
and I brought in the money and everybody else put in sweat.
Okay.
So when this happened, during COVID, I was also the one that continued to put in money to make sure, because we were a 1-year-old brand and in the middle of building our second location.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So
people are using equipment.
I will tell you this. Yeah, I will tell you the story, but I'd say it's a very rare situation. It just goes to show why you get into business with the people you get into business with.
Yeah.
So based on the operating agreement, I could have done a cash call whenever I wanted to and said, everybody man up. The part, whatever I'm putting in, your part equal, or I'm taking your equity. I mean, I could have done that. I wasn't going to do that.
Sure.
In fact, I did my best to not try to bother anybody. But what ended up happening, because we had done it that way, and we'd tried to be good partners and good on that. First of all, Leah's in there busting it every day.
Right.
And then Lou and Kevin have been nothing but good to us, right? So I just felt like that was not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is Leah and I did not take a hit. And the boys did, because they're not in there working, and they didn't have to put in anything during a really tough time for the brand. And they're happy about it, because now their part is going to be worth more because we just brought in money. And since she put in money, she got voting rights, because I believe that if you're going to put in a lump sum of money, you should at least be able to say you can sell the company or not.
So she puts in dollars. Mm-hmm. How much equity does Susie get? How do you value the dollar amount? How do you do that?
So I did a pretty basic valuation of the company. I mean, luckily I do that.
You do that all the
So,
time.
we looked at, obviously, assets, forward-looking profitability. We made some assumptions based on, we still had a little bit of COVID in that trailing 12 months. And, we were very, I am probably a little too generous sometimes on stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's like, does everybody feel good about it? Does everybody feel like they have value and no one's getting screwed? Including myself. And that's where we landed. But the value, honestly, it was a pretty simple valuation. And I said, and it was of the brand, which is different. Right. We won't ever do that again. We'll never let in, it would be a much bigger sale if we were ever going to do anything else, because coming in at the brand level is very different than coming in at a store level, right? Because now she owns part of the brand.
She owns part of Homewood and the Summit.
She owns part of anything that ever opens.
And if it goes to
Tuscaloosa,
you got.
So it's very different, but the valuation is still like what what was harder to me was the sweat equity offer on the front end when there's not even a building. Yeah. But it worked out. It worked, and they've been diluted, and they still have a piece that matters, right? And so there's no playbook on that. Right. I literally tell people all the time, I'm like, you just have to sit down. Even right now, we're probably about to do a joint venture potentially on Trustful or Tuscaloosa, and I look at it as they have to be able to make money doing what they're doing, and then we need to be able to make money, but also we're doing proof of concept. So maybe it's okay if we don't make as much as them on the first one, because they're going to go run through a wall, because they're going to have the upside. It's just so situational on how you structure a deal.
So what's the goal? And you start a business. Yeah. There's a part in your mind that says, let's grow to sell it. What is the goal? What do you think the goal is? What do you feel like the goal is? To me, the goal is, first of all, there's a huge culture soul piece to what we do, and we've seen that in real life. So it's not all about the money, but at the end of the day, it still is about the money. Yeah. But it's how do you create a bigger footprint to make a positive impact on more people? How do you do it the right way? How do you pick the right real estate? We've learned a lot with the two that we have. We're making the footprint smaller with the same workout room size. But I think the thing is that we want to go proof of concept on a JV, one more corporate, and then we've already built it from the front to franchise. So that's something I really didn't talk about. We trademarked on the front end. Yeah. Our training systems are incredible. The programming is replicatable. If we open another one, there's no more programming that has to be done for the third or the fourth or the fifth. It's already been done. The playlist and everything like that, and really building systems that are so simple for the team that they can focus on taking good care of people that walk through the doors. So you have to think through that. Okay. Yeah. So where in this process, Mpire came in?
Mpire was actually first on accident.
Empire, M-P-I-R-E.
Mpire,
Okay.
yeah. So it was just me in the beginning, but I just started getting phone calls. I mean, as soon as people heard that I left
That you left Zoe's.
it was mostly restaurant owners, and they wanted either operations consulting or financial consulting. A lot of it was ops in the beginning. Like, they're like, I don't know what to do. And what I found very quickly is that most of them just didn't have reporting. Like, it was hard to tell them where to even start.
Because the first question you ask is, let's look at the books and see where you are, how much you spend on this, how much you spend on that.
Yeah.
And then they look at you like you've got a unicorn horn coming out of your forehead and say, you don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could go in and say you're not executing the way you need to, and people aren't in the right places, and like, okay, you've only got 2 on the line, you really need 3 on line during peak. I mean, I could tell them all that, but what I found is that operations consulting is way more difficult because I can't go in there and enforce it every day.
Yeah.
And so what I really learned out of that front end experience, so I started doing some of that in 18. What I learned out of that is that I wanted to work with people that already were operators like you. People that knew how to get in there and run their day to day and run their business well, and they knew their concept, but they just needed help with kind of the crap that nobody really either doesn't know and hasn't been exposed to, or they don't want to deal with, which is the financial side, or really thinking through what is the best way to do this from a profitability standpoint. And so I just started really noticing that small business owners just don't have access to a CFO level type of consultant.
So how many clients do you have at Empire?
47.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that was the number. I was thinking you were going to say like 14.
No.
Okay, so give me the 30-second version of, like, you're literally in an elevator talking to somebody. I don't know a company called Empire, and we do
small business to mid-cap bookkeeping, and we offer a CFO consulting at a partial price, right? So we're outsourced CFO and admin and finance team for people, and we can scale to what people need, right? Yeah. So some people just need their books done, and they need at tax time, they need to make sure everything's done, and some people need AP and AR, and they need stuff off their plate so they can go really do what they're good at.
Okay.
We're just a value add.
So all of these things, Zoe's, Battle, Empire, how has life changed since your kid came along? So tell us about your baby.
Yeah, her name is Miller Jean.
Okay.
She's a little chunkalonk. She's awesome. So
how old is she?
She's 17 months old.
Okay.
Total toddler right now. So independent. It's changed completely. And then I'd say I feel like it's taken me a while to figure out how to get some of the pieces back to like they were before, which everybody can relate to. But she was a surprise.
Yep.
And we were in the middle of the pandemic. You know what I mean? Yeah, so it was like late 2020 when I found out. And I actually had to pick up and move with her dad for like 11 months to South Alabama. So I was managing the businesses from afar. That's why you have really good teams, man. That's why you have really good people around you. And my identity had kind of been, I mean, I've just been a worker. I've been a get it done, like learn from everything you do, and just like make things happen and look for the next thing. And I had to stop for a minute. I mean, one, I was physically incapable of doing as much as I was doing. But and then you get that. It's taken me 17 months, I'd say, and I still don't have it right. But to really find that rhythm of being a good parent and still giving your because you also still have a business baby. I mean, 2 business babies, right?
We talk about it all the time, like your business is your next child.
Yeah.
You got kid, but it's your other kid. So this is an interesting question. So because like a lot of people changed through COVID because it taught them to be smarter, taught them to be better, whatever, or people just totally failed. So what do you think helped you better, going through COVID or having a kid? Meaning, like, I've streamlined because you are real similar to I am. Like, hey, I'll go take care of it. Let's go do it, whatever.
Yeah.
So which one do you think made you better?
I think having a kid made me really get better at. I already knew, but I wasn't good at developing the people around me better to make sure that things still get done to the level they need to without me having to do it. And it's something I've always known in my career, but you talk about it really being forced on you. I mean, the moving too on top of it, I mean, and trusting and kind of seeing potential come out of people that you maybe knew was there, but you're like, oh gosh, I should have done this. I should have given them this a long time ago. I should have set them up better before this even happened. I mean, COVID was just a punch to the gut. We were literally about to open the summit. And we had been open for 1 year and crushing in Homewood. And we got no relief out of Summit because we opened during COVID. So we were like opened at half capacity. Total overhead came back when we reopened. We're paying the same. We never laid anybody off. We kept paying everybody. And we made it out the other side, and we're fine. It's not like, I mean, we
just a rough period.
All your cash is depleted when you come out of the other side of that. And then you kind of start to second guess your concept because you only got 1 year of it doing really well, and then you're like, I don't know what this is now. Is it us or is it this? That made me better at finding a way forward no matter what. Yeah. You know, like really saying, I'm not giving up yet. There's one more thing I can do, and there's one more thing I could do. But having a kid makes you, for me, it has made me more empathetic as a leader, for sure. Because, I mean, I think I was probably, like, okay at that before. But people that had kids, I didn't get it. I didn't know. No. And so now I'm definitely. And you can't explain it. No.
I tell people all the time, you cannot explain going to ball practice, being home for this, a kid being sick. You can't explain that, and you can't explain the love that you have in your soul until it actually happens.
Oh, 100%.
Even being pregnant and having a kid on the way, you can't explain it. And I just sit there and say, you know what, I'd love to talk about it, but I can't explain it. You'll know when that baby pops out.
Yeah.
And as soon as it does, everything changes. And I tell people this all the time. You view things through a different set of glasses once you have a kid. Because
absolutely.
Things in society, things in business, your time, all those things take another... it's the best way to say it. You view it through another lens, and it's not bad or good. It's just a different way to look at things.
Yeah. I can see how people get. I can see how it like eats people up and like takes them out. Man, we talk about. I have been very fortunate. We did not have as much help when we were in South Alabama, and now she's finally gotten into daycare. She was on a wait list. I went back to work 2 weeks after I gave birth, you know, and it was tough. It was tough. It was the first time I felt like I couldn't do anything well. Yeah. Like I felt like I wasn't being there enough for her, and I didn't know. I mean, it's like a kid, and you're like, I mean, there's no instruction manual. So I'm doing something where any entrepreneur I feel like has to have quite a bit of confidence. You know, I'm a confident person.
Super
I'm
confident.
Like, what is happening right now? Google is not my friend.
No.
And so, props to my partner sticking through all that, because it was some days where I didn't even know myself really, because I was so unsure of how to handle and do the right thing by her. And that was so important that to pivot my mind into a business meeting was like, I mean, woo.
14 seconds ago, I had a baby on my boobs.
Right? And then you're like, okay, let's talk about your financial statements and where you need to improve your profitability. And you're like, I'm like, am I awake? Am I here? And so we've really hit a great, I mean, it's still tough, don't get me wrong, but like having her, she's at the JCC now, and she's got great help there, and we have a girl here that helps us a little bit. But I mean, Philip works 10-hour days too, and what he does, and we're career people, but I have just learned to make balance. I have forced it on myself, and some things can wait. My friend Jenny Levin says some balls are plastic and some balls are glass, and the glass ones can't fall, and the plastic ones might.
And you figure that out really quickly.
And you do, and I've learned to not overpromise myself as much too. And I was always like, I could do that. I mean, I could grind it out and find a way, but now, I mean, then you miss something.
When you have, here's what I've noticed, and you do a good job at this, because I'll ask you, can you do this? Can you do this time? What about this? What about that? When you have kids and you have a business, you become great. If you're good at both, you become great at saying no.
You have to.
Because you cannot fit everything in. So my next question is this. Do you think you're going to have any more kids?
So I'm 40. And we've talked about it. If we do, it would be next year. But I don't know. I mean, sometimes I get worried that maybe there's not, like, this season of life of business growth, you know, I just wouldn't want to not be able to give what I need to give to anything. And I think I think we've just been through the tougher part with Miller right now. Like, we're just getting to where she can do for herself a little bit
But
more.
let me tell you something. I tell people this, until they can wipe their butt on their own,
Yeah.
and until they're out of a car seat, there's always something there. And it's not bad. It's just a fact.
It's just always being on. I mean,
Yes,
I think
that's a great
I
way to
had
say it.
like a moment in the bathtub Sunday night where I was just like, okay, like
Yeah.
I've been on for 21 days in a row. That's how I felt. I like look back and I was like, okay, I had a half day that day where I wasn't working or I wasn't engaged with my child, which she's not work, but you can't just like
it's
bring.
okay. She's work.
Yeah, she is.
I got 3 of them. That's work.
Yeah, and the best kind of way. But I think, and I said I gotta do better at that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer in the airplane scenario where the reason you put your mask on before you help somebody else is for a good reason.
Sure.
Because you'll pass out while you're trying to help them,
No
and then you're
doubt.
not going to help anybody. And so I think people talk about self-care and like making time for yourself and
Exercise,
and
eating right. Yeah.
I think people think it's like a selfish thing to do.
No.
But at the end of the day, it's like the least selfish thing you can do because you cannot do for others if you have nothing left to do.
You're the most important person in your life.
Yeah.
And if you are not taken care of,
Yeah.
your fiance can't be taken care of.
Yeah.
Miller can't be taken care of. I mean, and you can't take care of any of the businesses.
Can't.
So, okay, so all the thing, Empire, Battle, flipping, what is your main source of income? Like
Empire.
your Empire.
Yeah.
So Empire is like your, quote, let's just use the word salary.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Empire is your salary.
It's not my only, but it's the bulk of it. And it's where I spend
Most of your
I spend
time.
most of my time. But I have a team. Fitness is, I'm not a coach.
Right.
I don't know how. They are very good at that.
Yeah.
If you see me on a stage coaching class, like something has gone
Something's wrong. Yeah.
So I know my role, right? I've got really good people in place. So more of that money is going towards paying people that are better at it.
Do
than
you
me.
do you take how much time do you spend on Battle a week?
We have, I'd say probably an hour and a half a day. Just really, I'm almost consulting for my own business to some extent, but we have a full team meeting every Monday. It's like a 2.5 hour deep dive, and we go over KPIs and we go over like what we're doing for the next month, where we are right now. Team, like we do a team review, and so I'd spend a lot of quality time on that Monday so that I'm not putting fires out
All week
for
long.
the rest of the week.
Okay.
Mhm.
So one of the last questions I have is like, as a parent, as a business owner, we've talked about this before. What are you like studying right now? Like, what's maybe not the next thing, but what are you studying? Like, hey, I'm not really good at this, or hey, I want to get better at this. What are you studying?
I really want to get. Gosh, I feel like it's every day. I was just learning about a B Corp, which is like news to me.
I don't know what that is either.
It's like a socially and fiscally sound business. Patagonia is one. Like I think I am constantly learning about whatever kind of crosses my desk because I always want to be able to at least, I'm not going to be an expert at everything, but I want to know who to talk to about things. And so networking is something that I do enjoy because it helps me be like, I don't know that, but here's somebody who does. I
love doing that.
I enjoy that piece too. Yeah. And because you get to do for others, right? I mean, you get business for somebody else and you don't put it all on yourself. I think a lot of times people try to like be everything to everybody and say they can do it. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. But this
So-and-so
person
does it.
really well. But I'm still trying to learn, like I'm reading a lot about like scaling and like how you scale, the structure that you scale in and the way that you can hedge your risk on that. Because small Battle's so different than real estate and so different than Empire's no overhead except the people on the payroll. Like you're not building out a brick and mortar. And in real estate, you own a
Rent,
piece of property.
power,
You're leasing.
water, yeah.
In Battle, you're selling a service and a culture and a feeling.
Yeah.
And it sort of has kicked my butt, like being in that space because it's so different.
Right.
And I'm actually learning a lot more about the sales process because I've never been a salesman, and we're having to train our front desk not to be pushy, but how to actually close a membership sale. And we didn't do that before COVID because we didn't have to. Then it was COVID, and so we've brought in a consultant from Orange Theory and asked how they do it because
It's a good model. Yeah, they're a
They
good
are
model.
really good at that part. I mean, really, really good at that part. Their average unit volume is like 3 times what we do, and we do pretty well. And and
Wow.
so I'm like, tell me how to do that. And so I'm really becoming a student of my own industry right now in ways that I just don't know.
Sure.
And so that was cool to sit in front of someone that's with a concept that's really doing something
great.
well, and they can be like, here's what you need to do.
The thing about I like about them is there are a lot of people that are. You never read the book or heard of the book Raving Fans? Mm-hmm. Orange
Yeah.
Theory people are like CrossFit people.
Yeah,
So CrossFit people love it,
they do.
and they buy the clothes, they buy the shoes,
Yeah.
they buy the gear.
They're all in.
Orange Theory people are the same way.
Yes.
They love it.
They do.
They think that anything else is heresy,
Yep.
and they love it. So have you learned a lot from those guys?
I learned how the way they handle a rookie, like what we call a rookie, like a first timer when they come in, is really insightful and very like it's personalized. We're not big on. We're very like inclusive, and we want, even if you come once a week or twice a month, that you feel the same kind of welcoming and family feel that like someone that comes 5 times a week does.
Right.
And we train our people and we hire people around that culture. So it's kind of funny because we're not like trying to be like, oh, we're better than everybody else.
Sure.
We're literally just trying to be like, hey, we're going to love on you when you come in here, and you're going to feel seen, and you're going to get a heck of a workout. And it's a really cool environment. But so we kind of had to change our mindset a little bit, because you're trying to convince someone to buy a membership, but you want to do it in a way. Yeah, you're selling, but you want to do it in a way that feels on brand. So we learn they're just data driven people, and I don't know if I want to go all the way that way, but there's some of it that we needed to be doing.
Yeah.
It can touchy-feely is great, and soul and culture is great, but you can't fund it without the bottom line working.
Well, then body's in there.
Yeah. And so we've really taken a look at our experience and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, the way they convert like 80% of the new people that walk through the door into
80?
a membership. Yeah.
That's nuts.
It's stupid. It's got to be industry leading. I mean, everybody else I talk to is like 30, 35.
So if 10 people walk in the door, 8 of them are signing up for something.
Yeah. And that's recurring revenue, right?
Yeah.
And so it's what I've really tried to figure out for 3 years is like what drives everything.
Yeah.
And it's recurring revenue. It drives everything, which I know, but it's like, okay, well, if it's going to be the focus, then how do we make it the focus? So we've been doing sales training with our team, and we put in an incentive plan that really focuses on not the noise.
Talked about that yesterday.
Yeah, we're going to focus on membership sales, so you get paid off of membership sales and nothing else. That is what we want you to worry about.
What have I forgotten about you? Anything that else is going on?
I mean, probably not. I don't think. I mean, gosh, I feel
Lindsey
like
Miller in an hour.
I mean, I think I really am such a country person that is like kind of stuck in a city, and I mean, people close to me know, but like I want nothing more than to go back and farm.
Really?
Yeah.
You think one day you'll probably end up going back
I
and
would
doing that?
love to. My mom just took over. Her and my uncle are running our family farm now. My granddaddy passed earlier this year, and my dad passed 10 years ago in a car accident coming back from hunting. And so that was a catalyst for me to kind of grow up a lot.
Yeah.
But I was already doing really well on my path, but kind of gave me my why. I wanted to always make sure I was creating opportunity for myself and my family, no matter because if they needed it.
Sure.
And so I think I guess my why is something that I think everyone should really understand, like what makes them go.
Right.
And run everything through that, because if it doesn't run through that filter, then rethink why you're doing something. But if I'm not creating opportunity for myself or someone next to me, then then what am I doing?
That's awesome. What do you got for me? Anything?
Well, first of all, did you coach the whole time you were gone?
Yeah. So I left in 03, and I did high school for 2 years.
Okay.
And then was at NC State for 2 years. And that's a
right.
whole nother story. And then I was at Tennessee Tech for 6 years. Did not know Will at the time, but then we got out. So I was there. I was did that for like 10 years. And then for 5 years, I was meal fit in Tennessee. And then we moved back here. Okay. So we've been doing meal fit for 10 years. Dang, 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing it for 10 years. So
I admire the way that you see opportunities and you find a way to get involved when it's a really good opportunity, or you find, I mean, you've branched out. You're not still just doing one thing. I mean, you do multiple things too, and you do that. You do them well.
Thank you.
But I guess my one question for you would be, what would be your best piece of advice for a new parent that is also running multiple businesses?
I think what you hit on is very important. I think you got to have a great team. That's huge. Yeah. People that you like, for example, we're leaving next week and leaving for 5 days, and I have no worries at all. Obviously, I'll have a little bit of work on the front end. But we're going to be gone. I won't be reached. That's number one. But I think the thing that's helped me the most the last probably 6 months to a year is I typically don't work when I get home. And that's very, very hard for some people. I would rather be home an hour late than go present. Home and work. Yeah. So now granted, I work a lot in the morning because I work before my kids get up, and I'm fine with that. I try not to work a bunch when my kids are awake.
I love that.
So because I don't want Jonna, Georgia, and Tegan to see Daddy always working. Yeah. Because there's a big difference of me. I don't want them to me constantly be on my phone or on the computer or whatever, and them trying to come and get my attention. If I'm there and they need my attention, I want to be able to give it to them. At least, hey, hang on 1 second, let me do this. I'll be right there, and it not always be centered around work. Right. So hiring, and I didn't hire at the beginning stages because I tried to do everything.
Bootstrap.
But then. I hate the word balance. You used the word balance earlier. I'm more like, hey, let's be super focused in one direction and let's be super focused in the other direction.
I think that's a really good way to put it. Yeah. I think I've finally have found something in that. Yeah. But it is protecting my calendar, but still not saying no to everything, just saying what I can do. Yeah. Being realistic about it. But I like that. I mean, I think people kind of discount how it feels to feel unimportant when you're standing beside your parent and they're not present, right? Yeah. I mean, it's going to happen sometimes, but constantly. I mean, that's a tough feeling to get over sometimes.
So I'm trying to limit that as much as I can. Yeah. But I probably take less money because I hire. Yeah, I do too. Like I make less make less cash because I've got more people in place that can do the things that, honestly, A, I don't want to do, but B, I'm not very good at.
Yeah, I'm a believer. I'm same here. I mean, I could definitely do that too. But
we could make more money. Yeah. But we would also be stressed more, or have less time. But it's not worth it. So
it's not. And so, I mean, the time you spend developing your people is one of the most important investments you make.
And I've got to do a better job at that.
Well, we all do. I mean, it's hard to, when you're in your own business every day, it's hard to see it sometimes. Yep. That's why it's really cool to talk to people and just like get reminders of like things that you kind of know, but that you're like, man, I need to probably be doing that a little bit better. Yeah. And refocusing, I think people, and I guess one thing, I know a lot of people, I know you said people listen to this that are maybe thinking about doing something different or going into business for themselves. And that's something you have to constantly be a learner if you're ever going to go do something. It's never by yourself. You're not going to do something by yourself. You almost have to seek out mentorship even more because you don't have a boss.
Well, and here's the thing too, everything changes so rapidly. Yeah. So like, whether it be the marketing or whether it be the financial part of it, like, everything changes so rapidly, it's incredibly hard to stay on top of everything, which is why you need, hey, this is Lindsey's job, this is Sam's job, this is your job, this is my job, so that you can be not siloed so much, but like really focused on this. Hey, Thomas, this is changing. Like for a table in time, Ari's got her world, and she says, hey, we need to do this more. We do this more. Yeah. For example, she's like, hey, we need to do more video. Well, how can we do that? Because I'm not going to do video all the time. Right. I don't have the time. Don't want to make I don't want to make the time to do video all the time. Right. And so she's like, well, let's do this. And so she came up with a plan. Perfect. And we're doing it, and it's helped. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just writing a check.
Hire for your gaps.
That's it. That's it. Anything else? What else?
Tell me about this place we're in.
Okay, right so now. We have a wonderful opportunity to be housed at Highlands College. So what they did at Highlands College, they created this podcast studio because they get everything that's coming, and they know that the podcast and the verbal communication and even video communication is on the forefront. And so they have this wonderful podcast studio that, like Pastor Chris houses his podcast here, the Grow Leader podcast. Check it out. It's really good. But then this also gives them an opportunity for the kids that are in the creative practicum to work behind the cameras to see and do those things. But it also, there's going to be, like Pastor Mark Pettis is going to start one. But everything we do at Highlands College is they do at Highlands College is top notch. These guys are wonderful. It's, if you're wanting to go into ministry from a practical standpoint to learn how to spread the gospel, this is the place to go. It's a wonderful place. Very, very inclusive as far as like they're growing slowly so that they can be great at what they're doing. So it's a wonderful place.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful.
Good.
So.
Hey, thank you for being here. I'm so thankful for you and just all the stuff you hit with our business, but also just your friendship and just the things that I call at random times and say, hey, what do you think about this? And you're always like, well, let's talk about this. And so, but I really appreciate it so much.
Well, I appreciate you. It's cool to get to know a little bit more about you too.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.